Last year, Vancouver proved to be crowded and tight. Trouble looms around every corner. When the action heats up on the track, tempers flare off the track. Today, who will conquer this rough road course? The always aggressive Robbie Gordon with one road course win this year? Al Unser Jr. is the only man with a chance to catch Jacques Villeneuve in a points race, but he'll have to drive the wheels off his Penske. Michael Andretti is always exciting. He's led the most laps of any driver, but today he looks for win number 2. Bobby Rahal has been the model of consistency, but has yet to get that elusive win. They will all be chasing Jacques Villeneuve. With his smooth driving style, the young Canadian can clinch the title here in his homeland. It's a beautiful, crystal clear day in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. The Indy cars are ready for the Molson Indy Vancouver. I'm Paul Page, and boy, do we have a fight in the PPG Championship right now. Not just for the top spot, but all the way through the top 10. But let's consider for a moment that championship battle. The only way it becomes a battle between Jacques Villeneuve, the current points leader, and Al Unser Jr. is an appeal over his disqualification from the race at Portland. That appeal will not be heard until the 18th of September. So if you assume he wins it, then Al Unser Jr. is very much in the points fight, and it's Jacques Villeneuve's championship to lose. As a matter of fact, he must finish here 6th or better if he wants to finish with a championship here in his home country. Now, there are other stories all up and down the grid. Let's go to Gary Gerald.
Paul, there are 27 other challengers against Villeneuve here on the streets of Vancouver today, and all of them have got great hopes. The immediate challenge for Villeneuve will come from right alongside Jimmy Vasser for the 4th time this year as a front row starter. The 3rd time, in fact, he's been side by side with Jacques in the front row. There are always concerns on a street circuit. So much concrete. Vasser says you've just got to stay out of trouble. That's one of the keys, but there are many other keys. For that, let's go to Jan Beekes.
Well, Gary, today, Scott Goodyear, the Canadian, starts 4th, and it's the best ever qualifying position for Honda on a road course. Now, asked about his major concerns today for the race, without hesitation, he said these right here: tire management. If a driver uses too much throttle, spins these tires, heats up the surface, it could be a big concern for the drivers by the end of the race. Paul?
And the challenge here today is a tight, tough, and Derek, somewhat controversial circuit.
And for whatever reason, IndyCar racing over the years here at Vancouver has become a contact sport. Now, there are 2 ways to be successful. Last year, Al Unser Jr. was virtually incident-free, caught a good yellow, went on to win. Michael Andretti, on the other hand, had 2 unscheduled pit stops, went to the back twice, hit 11 different cars, and still made it onto the podium. Now, because it is so tight here and difficult to pass, drivers to a man are not so worried about who they may hit. They're more worried about who may hit them.
And consider the impact on the championship. Now, we've got a special surprise for you here today. P.J. Jones won in about everything he's ever driven. Now you're looking at Indy cars.
Yep, we're just about ready, about a month away from testing the Eagle chassis and the Toyota engine.
All right, but you're here to help the Deuce.
That's right.
What's going on?
Well, we got 6 onboard cameras, pit-to-car communication all day long on ESPN2.
And you're the commentator.
That's it.
Oh, boy. Watch us, listen to us, put a second TV up to keep track of P.J. All right, now let's take a look at the starting grid. The pole sitter with a new track record, Jacques Villeneuve. He can clinch the championship from his 5th pole of the season alongside Jimmy Vasser. He's finished 9th or better in every race but one since Indy. In row 2, it's Bobby Rahal, the fastest Mercedes-powered qualifier. And Scott Goodyear. He finished in the top 10 in all 5 races here at Vancouver. Now on row number 3, Michael Andretti, one of only 2 drivers ever to have won here. His wins were in 91 and 92. And Teo Fabi, his highest finish of the year was 3rd on the street circuit at Long Beach. Row 4, Robbie Gordon, last year's Vancouver pole sitter. He went on to finish 2nd. And Gilles de Ferran, his best finish of the season came 2 weeks ago at Loudon. Row 5 is Al Unser Jr., the defending champion, and a 3-time winner here. Scott Pruitt is alongside. He's already had a 2nd and 2/3 on street circuits this season. In row 6, Mauricio Gugelmin and Paul Tracy. The 7th row, the Fittipaldis, Christian and Emerson. The 8th row, Brian Herta and Andre Ribeiro. Row 9, Stefan Johansson and Alessandro Zampedri. The 10th row, Adrian Fernandez, Raul Boisel. Eliseo Salazar and Parker Johnstone make up row number 11. Carlos Guerrero and Juan Manuel Fangio in the 12th row. The 13th row, Brian Till and Hiro Matsushita. And the 14th row, Marco Greco and Mimo Chiatarella. So that's the way they line up here. Let's take a look at the race analysis as the field has acknowledged the start of the engines and has begun its pace lap. 100 laps here today. The track record set back by Scott Goodyear in '93, and the fuel window lap 22 to lap 36. And in today's field, the chassis, the engines, the tires, there they are. Now we'll take a look at the circuit here at Pacific Place in Molson, Indy, Vancouver. 9 turns on a 1.703 mile circuit. Those are the passing zones in blue. And so where are the trouble zones? The ones in red, exactly the same. So we're set to go. 2 more races to go in the IndyCar season. A great points fight all the way down through the top 10. And there's Jacques Villeneuve followed by Jimmy Vasser. They'll move into the rows of 2 very quickly here. Remember, a number of surface changes on this track. They will go alongside the stadium here, which is covered over. There they are in that area right now. No rain in the forecast here today, but that's been a critical area when it's rained in the past. And like most of the street circuits, it's just rung with concrete barriers, which can end a day in an eye blink. So it can make a marvelous formula for just an incredible run here today.
One of the difficulties here all weekend, Paul, is it has taken 2 to 3 full laps at racing speed to bring the tires up to optimum working temperature. That has been a concern, particularly for the back half of the grid. They may get involved in somebody else's incident.
Johnny Rutherford at the wheel of the PPG pace car. That's the pit exit. He turned down the rest of the field into alignment now. There's the turn on to the pit straight, and the start-finish line lies just ahead with the green flag ready to come out. And here we go. Villeneuve sweeps across the front. Vasser into second. Ray Hall comes up into third. Rest of the field safely through. First set of very slight turns. A hairpin lies ahead. Now under serious braking, Villeneuve continues the lead. Michael Andretti challenges Goodyear on the outside. DeFerrin comes around Al Unser Jr. Christian Fittipaldi makes a move too, but gets caught up on the exit of the corner.
Obviously a first gear hairpin. We saw cars literally stop there, but look at Scott Goodyear under attack.
Look at DeFerrin. Look at the rest of them. We've got 3 cars involved in a situation there. DeFerrin got airborne, almost pitched head-on into the wall. I think he got the tire barrier, though. Now, they do have a chicane area. Well, this is the chicane. There's an escape road there. And we're on a full course yellow here on the very first lap. They may actually route the field down. Tracy involved. That's Scott Pruitt just ahead, just behind Paul Tracy.
All right on the car, Scott?
Fine on the car. Heard a conversation there. We have 2-way with Jim McGee and Scott Pruitt, who's definitely involved there. And now the indication is, and there it is, we're going to red flag this race. We're going to stop it, put it into realignment. So an incident right after the hairpin as they made the turn back to the first chicane. Gil DeFerrin got punted to the outside and stopped Paul Tracy, DeFerrin, and Scott Pruitt. So the field under a full course yellow. Here is Brian Herta's view of this situation.
That's Al Unser Jr. right ahead of him.
Just ahead of him, the car's coming with a complete stop, and there.
No, that was Emerson. Al Jr.'s up the road just a little bit, but it was Al Jr. who made contact with Gilles DeFerrin, punts him off the road.
On board with Tracy here. DeFerrin in the situation right there on the left.
And Tracy's an innocent bystander here. The traffic jam backs up. He plows right into the back of Robbie Gordon, stalls his engine, and we do not know now whether there is damage to the rear of Robbie Gordon's car.
So now they are red flagged, stopped here, and nothing we have seen counts because it's first lap. Everybody that can restart will realign. We'll start the thing all over again. Race Day America is back at Pacific Place in Vancouver. Red flag flies here. The race is stopped. It will be started once again in the starting order. The lap did not count. Here's the reason why. First, we ride with Paul Tracy.
And just listen. There's the crash, and there's Tracy stalling his engine.
But what set this crash up? Maybe this will give us a better view.
Left of your screen, right there. I can't understand where Al Jr. thought he was going to go there and risk his championship chances on contact. Inside with Robbie Gordon.
DeFerrin just ahead.
On the inside.
So, some things happening in the pits now, Gary.
Well, everybody's scrambling to make repairs as best they can. We're in the Newman Haas pit. Take a look at the nose that has just come off Paul Tracy's car. The rubber marks indicate the contact here. Then look at the middle. You can see where the carbon fiber has just been gouged deeply. And then over here on the side plate on the right side, further damage. All of this now behind the pit wall. New nose on that car. He's ready to go. Al Unser Jr. also did the same thing. They put a new nose on his Penske chassis, so he is ready to go once we get back to a green flag situation. Let's check in with Jan Beekes.
Gary, a very similar situation for Robbie Gordon. He came in, we saw on the onboard camera that he had contact with Al Unser Jr. Here's the nose that they replaced. First of all, there's the tire mark where he hit little Al. This is where it's damaged. It's broken there, and of course the all-important sealing surface there on the bottom. So a thankful situation for Robbie Gordon and Walker Racing. The red flag, time to change this wing. Paul?
Well, what they're going to allow DeFerrin to do is pull his backup car out, which they have. There it is. They work on it. And they will let him restart in his original qualifying position. So when we come back, we'll be back to racing here in Vancouver after a very strange start. We're back, and this has been a feverish activity down in the Hall pits.
This is Steve Eppert, the mechanic who has done so much to put this car back together. Took the gearbox off the crash car and managed to put it together and back on this car. And it has been a hot, sweaty day for Steve so far, and the race hasn't even started.
So they pulled the backup car into position, but they had a lot of work to do on it. And this is the situation that set up the red flag. Now, take a look at the approach of the turn.
DeFerrin's on the outside. On the inside of the chicane. Now watch Al Jr. hit the curb. Hits the curb, goes forward, and then punts Gilles DeFerrin into the fence.
So Gilles DeFerrin ready to go in the backup car. Let's go to Gary Gerald.
Well, Jim Hall has overseen this crew change shocks, gears, suspension, tires, wings, brake pads, steering wheel, seat. Jim, this crew did a marvelous job, but the concern now is how good do you think this car will work for your driver?
Well, we can't be sure. The cars are not identical. They're very close, but there are some differences. So we tried to put the same setup on this car as we had on the race car in the time we had. We changed a lot of things. I think we did about 90% of it. And maybe the other 10% won't make that much difference. I hope so anyway.
Would you have been better served if that car had been more prepared, more race ready?
Well, I guess that's a possibility. It depends on your point of view and where you're going. I think it was pretty darn close. We made some changes in the other car this morning, and I guess we could have gone to the trouble to put those on, which we didn't.
Well, that's the story from Jim Hall. It's a yeoman-like job for this crew. Jan?
Well, Gary, first of all, IndyCar did allow the teams to change tires if they like, because normally you have to start the race on the tires that you qualify on. Now, we checked every car as it rolled out. The only cars that changed were those who ran Firestone tires. First of all, Tasman. They started the race originally on the soft tires. They have now gone to the harder primary tires. But Scott Pruitt and Alessandro Zanpetri, they've gone here to the sticker tire, to the very soft Firestone, to try for some very quick performance to pick up some positions. Paul?
Now they should come back into the rows of two alignment, everybody in their original position for qualification. As yet, we're not seeing that kind of lineup. Pace car, Johnny Rutherford at the wheel of that PPG pace car, pulled ahead a bit as they came out of this second chicane. And they still are scrubbing the tires as clean as they can get them. That tire story is going to be fascinating here today. So many good stories on the line in the Indy cars. As the pace car now off the course. One turn. And Jimmy Vasser seems to want to get a head start on everybody else. And Jacques Villeneuve has taken him through very slow. Now remember, he needs to get to the line first for a good start, and they're not going to accept it. The general rule is that you want the nose of the pole car to actually cross the line first. It wasn't going to happen there. The field doubled back on itself in the final turn. That's probably a pretty good move, though. It's going to get him single file for the start.
There's Gilles de Ferran in that rebuilt car. I really am quite surprised that a front-running team like that do not have the car absolutely in race-ready trim for a situation just like this. They're just lucky it took so long to refuel the rest of the cars, because that's what took the delay. If Valvoline had fueled the cars in half the time, Gilles de Ferran may not be in this race now in that spare car.
Race Day America on ESPN. The Indy cars in Vancouver, ready for a restart after a red flag with an accident involving 6 different cars, but puts them back in the original lineup. And then the green flag doesn't come out, the field not properly aligned. Let's see if they can do it better now. First time in the history of IndyCar that a backup car has been pulled and put into the starting lineup in a situation like this.
And Scott Pruitt had an extra lap to scrub in those sticker tires.
So now, once again, very slow. Assume that Jack is counting on something that they've planned very carefully. Lower gear to get off the line. Pace begins to pick up. He's in the proper position, as is the rest of the field. And here we go. Boy, look at the jump he gets with that start. Scott Goodyear seeks back and forth, looking for a position. Michael Andretti comes up inside Scott. de Ferran, very brave, coming up on the back of Gordon. And de Ferran comes side by side with Gordon. So that car must be working. Christian Fittipaldi gets caught a little out on that corner.
Here's the trouble spot again.
A little better for de Ferran this time. Al Unser Jr. not nearly as aggressive. Stays behind him. Looks like Christian Fittipaldi's got a problem.
Flat right rear tire. He's obviously been hit by somebody or has made contact. There's the outer rim of the tire. That may cause a yellow. They don't clear that up.
Boy, Jimmy Vasser took a real pitch coming into the final turn before the pit straight. You're now riding with Bobby Rahal. Rahal third. That's Vasser just ahead.
Oh, he has a run on him. Down the back straight, 170 miles an hour. This is an extended braking zone. Longer on the brakes here. Long straight run before the slow corner here. 35 miles an hour. Look at Vasser accelerate away.
Emerson Fittipaldi into the pits. Apparently in contact. Has to change the front nose.
That may be the telltale. They started side by side on the grid. Emerson and Christian. That may be the reason why Christian flattened that right rear tire.
Oh, is that front nose as opposed to tail nose? He changed the nose. Scott Goodyear, one of his few rides of the season. Honda Power driving for Tasman and chasing Bobby Rahal. Order is Villeneuve, Vasser, Rahal, Goodyear, and Michael Andretti. Fittipaldi limping back to the pits, Jan Beekes.
Yes, he came in. It was a pretty routine stop once he got here, but both Fittipaldis on pit road after the conclusion of the first lap. Of course, he lost all of his time trying to get back here. The Walker crew was quick, but unfortunately all the time lost on the racetrack, Paul.
Okay, and Emerson knows a Christian tire. They started in the same row. Does that tell you something? Little family problem there?
Christian hasn't had a good weekend here. His engine blew up in the early moments of qualifying yesterday and didn't get a time that he thought he deserved. Look how bumpy it is here on the acceleration run to the notch, or out of the notch. The notch being chicane number 2.
Again, the turn back on to the pit straight. Al Unser Jr. not showing the aggression that we saw out of him in the first attempt at starting here.
Fastest part of the racetrack. Just under 180 miles an hour right here before he stands on that brake pedal.
Part of the delay under the red flag was to put fuel back in the cars, so we will run the full 100-lap distance. The cars have been refueled so they can do that. Let's go to Jan Beekes.
Hey, Paul, when you're talking about the Fittipaldis, on the original start of the race that was red flag, it turned out that Christian Fittipaldi was confused as to which side he should start. And so he and Emerson kept trying to squeeze each other off the racetrack. They had words during the red flag, and now, of course, it appears as though possibly they may have had contact here on the second start.
Looking through the rundown after 3 of 100 laps here. 1.7-mile course, 9 turns, temporary road circuit, very rough, very tight quartered.
And somebody in that top 5 went by here with a very sick-sounding engine.
Bobby Rahal got by Jimmy Vasser. And now Michael and Scott Goodyear closing up on Vasser. Tight battle right here, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th.
Maybe it's Vasser that has that engine problem. On board with Michael, 11 different cars he had last year, coming from the back twice with those 2 unscheduled stops. He was spectacular.
DeFerrin, his backup car, seems to be running fine. No problem. He currently runs in 7th place. No obvious problem. And now here comes Goodyear trying an inside move on Jimmy Vasser. Michael Andretti sitting in position to pass as well. Next hairpin, Maytel. DeFerrin just got caught out again. As Unser Jr. tried to get under him.
Vasser is in trouble. This engine is broken. It sounds like an exhaust header. He's slow down the straight. Michael will pounce also. Will Robbie Gordon get by? Oh, he slides down the inside.
So Gordon going into the hairpin gets past as well, and Jimmy Vasser, who started 2nd, is falling well behind. You can see that Al Unser Jr. did indeed get past DeFerrin, got a yellow flag flying here, and we don't yet see the reason. Yes, we do. Wing just over the top.
That is Mimo Schiattarella's car, so he is backwards. Hopefully he's kept the engine running.
Have the water bottles ready.
Two-way communications today being monitored. As you see Schiattarelli sitting down there backwards, and it looks like the engine is not going. Indication is that Jimmy Vasser will be on his way in.
Comes down inside Marco Greco, locks up those rear brakes. He tested for this team at Putnam Park just a few days ago. He will do Laguna Seca also. Jan Beekes.
Jimmy Vasser is in. You can hear in the background, you can hear the conversations between Tom Anderson and Jimmy Vasser. What he's telling him is, we had to call you in. We think you have a broken header. If you would have stayed out there, it would have started the bodywork on fire. They now have the lid off the car. They're looking. Doesn't appear as though they found it yet, but it certainly sounded like a broken header for Jimmy Vasser.
Yeah, but to his advantage, they've just put out the full course yellow because of Mimo's position there on the course. They're going to have to get him out of that position, and when they put the IndyCar safety vehicles out, they definitely want the field slowed down and under the control of Johnny Rutherford in the pace car. Still under a full course yellow. We've had a couple of situations that have created this. Schiattarella with his spin and stop on the course. Brian Till has brushed the wall. Also, Fangio has brushed the wall. Apparently their cars are both okay. Jan Beekes?
Well, we're talking about Jimmy Vasser. They checked the exhaust because it certainly sounded like a broken header. It turned out that it wasn't. So what they're doing is they have changed all the electrical boxes that control the Ford Cosworth. They're now fueling it. He'll be underway any minute, Paul.
And the field is back underway. Jimmy's lost a few laps there from an advantageous 2nd starting position. Back single file on the start, and Bobby Rahal now in attack at the back of Jack Villeneuve. Then Goodyear, then Michael Andretti, then Robbie Gordon. Al Unser Jr., the other combatant in the championship, is now 6th. There's trouble corner. Everybody clean through here now. Now the report from the pits, Jimmy Vasser heading out.
He went by our booth here. In fact, the engine sounded terrible, so I think he'll be on his way back to the pits again. Look at Michael.
the way into the corner. I wouldn't want to be sitting there. Very precarious position.
And he'll go all the way to the back. There is a line of cars as long as the front straight here.
Everybody gets past safely.
You can see the rear's locked. Now it's over from here. Can't save it. Michael ducks down to the inside. Scott gives it a burst of power to see can he do a 360, and now he's got to sit there.
Yeah, there he goes. I think once he got halfway around, he realized what was coming down on him and thought, let's just let it point nose on.
What a stellar job he did this weekend for Tasman Motorsports to put them right at the front again. And he may well be with that team on a full-time basis next year if all goes well. What a combination that would be.
Yeah, a lot of good rumors there that may bring him back, make it a two-car team for the entire season. Good sponsorship. Report from the course on Jimmy Vasser remains that it doesn't sound very good at all. So whatever it was, they obviously haven't found it.
Michael being chased by Gordon. Gordon honestly believed he could have been on the pole, except the plenum blew off the top of his Ford engine. During the last dying moments of qualifying, he was the fastest man on the racetrack this morning in the warm-up. And now he chases Michael.
But right there is the key to that whole battle, is that Al Unser Jr. got a round tail Fabi and is now chasing Robbie Gordon. So Al Unser Jr. is now up another position, running in 5th.
This is the notch. We don't call it chicane. It's an extended chicane, so it became a notch. I've never heard a corner called a notch, but we have one here in Vancouver. Look at the bumps you see over here. This is where you see these racing cars really look as if they work hard and go fast. Pruitt now sneaking up behind DeFerrin.
Jimmy Vasser back into the pits. Also, it looks like they continue work on Fangio's car and the Pac West team a little further down pit road. Here's DeFerrin running in 7th place, trying to catch Teo Fabi just ahead, with Scott Pruitt trying to close down. Now Fangio's climbed out of his car, so apparently that brush with the wall ended up being terminal.
Look how careful you have to be. Look how close that concrete wall is to the left side suspension on these cars. You have to be mistake-free.
Jr. now right on the back end of Robbie Gordon's car. He's been picking him off steadily. Don't forget, his positioning is critical to the championship fight, that depending the outcome of the appeal hearing now set for after the season on the 18th of September. But everybody has to go into this assuming that that appeal will be upheld and that he will be given his win back. I say assuming that because if you assume anything else, he can definitely sneak up on you. In other words, Jack Villeneuve can't just say, well, I don't think it'll be upheld. I'm going to take it easy.
Oh, this is a good battle here with Gordon, Unser, and Michael Andretti. They're all in a line here. Unser beginning to pressurize Robbie Gordon. I think he got a bit sideways under braking at the end of that long back straight.
Looked like he ran a little bit loose there. Gary Gerald?
Paul, just ahead of that group that you're watching in the battle there for 3rd place, Bobby Rahal, who's chasing Bilduff. And Rahal, with his best start in nearly 2 years, starting up in the 2nd row today, and despite the fact that he's been battling strep throat and then symptoms of tonsillitis. 102-degree temperature yesterday. He was much improved this morning, but one of the problems for Bobby Rahal was tucking in the chin strap, where he had swollen glands down around his throat. It was causing him a lot of discomfort. It's much improved today, but despite the discomfort all weekend long, he has been very, very racing.
Gary, right now we watch an incredible battle as Robbie Gordon tries to hold off on now charging Al Unser Jr.
And Robbie is having to be defensive. He's trying to move to the inside. Al Jr. is quicker, particularly under braking, and Fabi has a great view of the whole thing. Under braking right here, Jr. is better. What's the line?
4th, 5th, 6th is the battle. Fabi is 6th.
See, Al Jr. has
look at him lock the brakes.
Oh, Fabi locks up the right front. He had a lot of trouble in the morning warm-up this morning. They had pads that were simply too thick. The car would not accelerate. But Lee Dykstra has done such a good job, along with Robin Hurd, setting up this car for Teo Fabi.
You talk about the concern about tires here, Derek. Is there also a concern for just that kind of situation? You go locking a brake up into a corner, flat spot it, and help cause additional blistering?
Oh, you can get away with it once or twice, but once you begin to flat spot it, it tends to stop on that particular flat spot every time you brake hard, and suddenly you blister, and then you're in an unscheduled pit stop.
So here in Vancouver, Jacques Villeneuve is now about 0.8 of a second out ahead of second place Bobby Rahal as the battle continues in the Indy cars. Back in Vancouver, the battle heats up between Robbie Gordon and Al Unser Jr. for 4th place. A little later, we're going to take you out to the ballpark. That is the ballpark at Arlington, Texas, as the Kansas City Royals take on the Rangers live on Sunday Night Baseball in the game of the week. Well, Al Unser Jr. is moved up, and there's two interesting, rather similar driving styles here, an almost totally disconnected form of driving for both Gordon and Al Unser Jr. as he's closed down and is now really worrying Robbie Gordon. And Teo Fabi has been closing in as well with some slower traffic just ahead.
And traffic can be a factor here, because the difficulty for the traffic is moving offline. There is so much rubber and debris, you get yourself in trouble. But this is the battle here. Al Jr. right now is the fastest man on the racetrack. He currently has the fastest lap.
Yeah, but look what Matsushita has done to the front of the field. First, second, and third is closed right down on top of the leader, Jacques Villeneuve. He enjoyed a little bit of a lead, but right now he has got Rahal right behind him. There you go, all the way through 5th. They're all right together, and it compressed in that one hairpin. Let's go to Jan Beekes while we watch this battle.
Jimmy, you've got out of your car. It first sounded like a broken header. Any idea what the problem was?
I don't know. This is, it's very unfortunate. It's the 6th time we've fallen out of a race running up in the top 5, and you just can't win championships that way or even come close. So, I'm disappointed, but hopefully this won't happen to us. This is just going to have to stop. I hate to sound like I'm a whiner, but, you have to finish these races to do well.
Anything you can tell us about next year? I know you're excited about that.
Just can't wait to get into next year, and hopefully these things won't happen to me next year. I can make a run to the championship.
Thanks, Jimmy.
Thank you.
So this fight continues. It's tightened up at the front of the field. Al Unser Jr. continues to work on Gordon. Michael Andretti is beginning to worry Bobby Rahal. Jacques Villeneuve is able to pull away a little bit. We're now 21 laps deep into the race, and one more lap. The fuel window for the first stop will open.
Well, this is great stuff here. Robbie Gordon has just equaled the fastest lap of Al Unser Jr. They are the fastest cars on the racetrack. That is why it is closing up at the front. The front is not dropping back. They are moving up. Oh, this is great under braking, Paul. Look at this. Al Jr. is better, but he just can't find the room to squeeze down inside Gordon.
With 3rd place, Michael. Teo Fabi, 6th place now, closing in on Little Al. So now it's 1 through 6. Update on Al Unser Jr., Jan?
Yes, when you see that battle between Robbie Gordon and Al Unser Jr., they're both running Goodyear tires. However, the Penske team and the Newman-Haas team are running the option compound. In other words, Al Unser Jr. has a harder compound tire than you're seeing with Robbie Gordon. As time goes on, Al Unser Jr. should be able to apply more pressure on Robbie Gordon.
Boy, Michael Andretti is working hard, trying to get around Rahal. Great battle here, and a great battle just behind him.
Oh, this is great. Michael is all over the place trying to catch Rahal. Took a lunge down the inside, you saw it. Then the car began to get away from him.
And he does it. He gets down under the inside. I find that hard to believe. I would have thought he lost it.
Well, he almost did lose it. It looked to me as if he was virtually out of control. The engine went quiet. He was locking up the rear brakes, but he managed to pull it off. Now, can he reel in Jacques Villeneuve?
So Michael Andretti around to second into pursuit. By the way, Gilles de Ferran has managed to close up a bit on Teo Fabi. And now Al Unser Jr. around Robbie Gordon, and he chases Rahal. Here's the pass, Michael and Rahal.
See him slip and slide down the inside. Just about gets enough traction. Rahal is forced to the outside. Robbie Gordon still has the position here, but Al Unser Jr. under acceleration made the move and passed him. Now he attacked Rahal.
You can get a good view of DeFerrin there as he closes in. So does Scott Pruitt.
I think DeFerrin is doing a good job back there for a car that he has hardly sat in. That car will have Honda power next year. Honda engines will power Jim Hall's cars for Gilles DeFerrin next season.
They're all strung together. Paul Tracy has just joined the back of that battle from 9th. So 2nd through 9th running together, Gary Gerald.
Paul Tracy has just indicated that he feels his car is working very, very well, but the frustration is beginning to show a bit. He says, I just can't get by anybody. The congestion factor back where he is has got him hamstrung for the moment. The drivers here, as you've indicated, you have to be aggressive, but you got to be somewhat cautious at the same time. So it's a controlled aggression. And as this race winds on, it's going to be very interesting to see who pushes the envelope a little further, takes the bigger risk.
Well, in Paul's case, he's not getting by, not for trying. He's right there. Robbie Gordon. By the way, we have two-way communications with Gordon, two-way communications between the pit and Scott Pruitt, and two-way communications with Michael Andretti and the pits. Those frequencies should get active here in a second. Gordon tries it. Well, what happens there? That's Rahal on the pit road as he comes off, almost loses it on the approach. 80-mile-an-hour speed limit. Gary Gerald, he's there.
He's concerned about the rear tires going off. They've indicated through radio conversation they may go up on tire pressure in the front. They may also make a wing change. There it is. Jimmy Prescott at the right front, and Rahal is gone. That's a quick stop, Paul. Under 12 seconds.
Great stop. In the last 4 races held here in Canada, Rahal has finished second 3 different times. Twice at Toronto and in '93 here in Vancouver.
And you just got a quick glimpse of the Diamond Vision, which is at the end of the pit lane here. So all the teams down at the beginning of the pit lane can actually watch their drivers in battle here, and look at the man in battle here. Michael is reeling in Jacques Villeneuve.
That space really is where Rahal came out. Scott Pruitt runs back in 7th position. Slower car to the inside doesn't appear to be a factor. Pruitt in 7th, Jan Beekes.
Yeah, so we just had a report from Patrick Racing that there was contact between Scott Pruitt and Paul Tracy, right as Gary was telling us that there was a high level of frustration with Paul Tracy, and there is a potential there could be a slight bit of damage with Paul Tracy's machine.
And now with Michael Andretti right at the back end, the leader continues to have to fight with slower traffic, and that is one of the issues that could be so critical to Jacques Villeneuve's championship, because just the slightest mistake, he's in the barrier, and this thing goes to the final race of the season in 1 week at Laguna Seca.
Remember what we said in the opening. The drivers are more concerned about who may hit them rather than the mistake they may make. Now, Michael is clearly faster than Jacques Villeneuve at the moment, but Al Unser Jr. is still the fastest car in the racetrack.
Whoa, there's the move as Michael comes to the inside, pushes Jacques to the outside. Michael Andretti takes the lead of the race.
When you force the issue, and it's Michael Andretti doing the forcing, sometimes you have to just let him go, which is what Jacques Villeneuve did there. The championship is still his if he maintains his track position at the moment, irrespective of what Al Jr. does.
It's an argument really not worth having, but it looks like Jack wants to get right back into it. And Al moves up there as well, so 1st through 3rd all together here with pit stops for these cars due at just any moment. Jr. is right at the back end of Villeneuve now.
He loves this move, Paul. He just misses the rear tire, slides down the inside. Now he hopes Villeneuve sees him, realizes he pulls it off, and he accelerates away.
That's the move that put Michael Andretti into 1st place. And now Al Unser Jr. is beginning to worry Jacques Villeneuve as well. But it's still the position that Jack needs, as Derek suggested, for the championship. So at the front of the field now, it's Michael Andretti, then Villeneuve, and Al Unser Jr., Robbie Gordon, and Teo Fabi rounds out the top 5. We're back in Vancouver, and here is the battle for the championship, presuming the outcome of that September 18th appeal. Villeneuve and Al Unser Jr., they currently battle for 2nd place. Michael Andretti is the leader. But boy, if you want a demonstration of the points fight, there it is.
And Jacques Villeneuve is in all sorts of trouble. The right front of his car keeps locking up.
You looking down on this very tight circuit. There's the hairpin from the Honda Helicam. Look at Al. Boy, he pokes the nose right into the back end. Great shots. Now they head right under the stadium, and little Al's going to try him. Nope, moves to the inside, then drifts back behind him. Lets him know he's there. Right behind, Gordon and Fabi continue to close, continue their fight.
And it's only a matter of time here before the pass is made or before contact is made, because Al Unser Jr. is way quicker than Jacques Villeneuve at this moment. But Villeneuve has track position, but he is hanging on by the skin of his teeth. I don't know how long he can hang on here. Look at that right front again.
30 laps into the book right now. Al Unser Jr. pulls alongside on the main straight. Drag race right down that pit straight across the line. Villeneuve still has the nose, and he pulls away in the corner. But that tells you a little bit about what might happen coming down here to the right-hand hairpin. Al Unser Jr. still can't get the acceleration there, but coming off of this corner. Jan Bikus, you've been watching Villeneuve.
Yes, I have, and it turns out, Paul, that he is on the primary tire for Goodyear, and of course they are thinking about that. They know that Michael Andretti and Al Unser Jr. are on the option compound, and they know they're the two fastest cars on the racetrack. So Team Green is ready at the first pit stop to change over to the option compound. They have them down here in the pit. They're all scrubbed. They're all ready to go. First pit stop. Right now, they're just trying to hang on so they can make it to that point. Paul?
Beyond, he has really been lighting up the fronts under braking. In fact, Robbie Gordon closing in on the back of Al Unser Jr. now. I'd be interested in the condition of these tires once they come off, because Jack has really been using them. Here we go again. Al Unser Jr. goes for that position. This time he's blocked as Villeneuve sweeps across the front. Almost looked like there was contact there, but Al Unser Jr. hangs on to him through the first turn.
Jacques Villeneuve is entitled to use the line he is using. He is not varying his line as he goes to the apex. He's taking a defensive line. Al Jr. almost hits the back of him.
Boy, look how everybody closes in under braking. That's got to be scary on board. Now we're with Robbie Gordon, and Villeneuve locks the brakes again. As Al tries to get around him. This time he gets a close nose on him, gets alongside him, and in the tunnel, Al Unser Jr. gets around. And Robbie Gordon's moving to the inside as well. Boy, look at his whole gang bottled up behind here. Jack is in serious trouble here as everybody through Tracy, everybody through 7th gets through.
Well, he waited a lap too long because he is a lame duck out there right now. Surely he is on his way to Barry Green and that crew in the pit lane to get rid of those tires.
And there he comes off of the track and into the pit. So Jacques Villeneuve, after some problems on the course and problems that could definitely keep him from scoring his championship here, now heads toward his pit and Jan Bikus.
That's right, Paul. He brings it in. He stops it on the marks, and we took a quick look at the tires. They are going to be putting the option compound onto Jacques' car. Now, of course, that is what Michael Andretti, Al Unser Jr. have been very effective with. Now they're just waiting for fuel, and as Saladero, Sam Petrie's a little bit in the way. Kind of a slow stop here for the Team Green.
Boy, Jason King on that left rear really changed it fast. Sam Pedri, by the way, was answering not only for the pits, he'd been black flagged for a front wing problem, so they were taking a look at that as well.
And the option compound that Jan is mentioning is actually a harder compound. It is faster on these long runs because it does not wear out as fast. And that is what Villeneuve has just gone to. Robbie Gordon peels off. Look at Tracy.
Gordon running in 3rd, but as he takes off, that brings Tracy up behind Pruitt. Here is Gordon moving for his stop. We'll listen to the radio as Jan Bikus waits for him.
Here he comes. He also brings it in right on the marks, and we're trying to take a quick look to see what tires he's going to. We're looking over the shoulders. It doesn't look as though he's going to the option tire. So Robbie Gordon is taking a chance on the softer tire.
Okay.
Let's see how this one works out.
Rahal's coming round now. Rahal's coming round. That's all right. Not much you could have done about that, but that's good. That puts you about 13.
And so with Robbie Robbie, Gordon.
Get after it as soon as you can. There's important laps here. We've got to run as quick as we can.
Robbie Gordon completing his stop, talking with his team owner, Derek Walker. Michael Andretti has 11.5 seconds on second place, Al Unser Jr. Of course, Michael, there he is, has not yet stopped.
And of course, Michael took full advantage of Jacques Villeneuve just backing up the whole train behind him, and that's what allowed him to pull out such a huge lead so quickly.
There's second place Unser Jr. He has not stopped as well. In fact, in the front of the order, Michael, Unser Jr., Fabi, Pruitt, Tracy, Ribeiro, Brian Herta, Boisel, Salazar, Fernandez. That's the top 10 at the moment. None of those cars, though, have made their first stop for fuel. We're now on the 35th lap. Based on the fuel window, the presumption is that in this lap or next, they're all going to have to hit the pits.
What a temptation it must be to Paul Tracy when he reads the rear wing of Scott Pruitt's car. It says, just do it. He can't do it. It's so frustrating between the concrete walls. But yes, Nike Canada backing this Patrick Racing team again with Scott Pruitt. He is running fourth and Tracy running fifth.
Here's the Villeneuve situation with Al Unser Jr.
All sorts of trouble here. Al Jr. grabs the gear and accelerates. But from here to the end of the lap, Jacques Villeneuve was a lame duck, had no speed, no grip, and everybody just shot right by.
And Al Unser Jr. must finish third or better to remain alive in the championship. Of course, right now, he runs in second behind Michael. Michael Andretti, leader of the race here at the Molson Indy Vancouver, getting some great mileage out of his Ford engine. Has now completed 38 racing laps, has not hit the pits. But then again, Al Unser Jr. hasn't either until right now, Gary.
Paul, we watched from way back. We're up at the Newman Haas pit trying to get a look over the wall and having to move back. They're expecting Michael Andretti on the next lap. Junior was going off just a bit. They said in 3, then they made it 1. He's getting his service and is now underway.
Al Unser Jr. falling down through the order as the rest of the field strings past. Michael Andretti due in the pits. And little Al joined in 6th place, but he was not yet up to speed.
You see, oh,
whoa, Tail Bobby loses it. Fortunately, he doesn't touch anything. Yellow flag comes out. Let's see if he kept the engine going. He did, and he's gone. Nice work, Tail.
Whoa, you can get an idea how hard they have to stand on the brakes there, Gary.
Michael Andretti, remember the Newman Haas cars, both of them started on the optional compound. Lee White talking to Michael. They're at 13 seconds.
Get ready, get ready, go. Now watch your speed.
This is a 15-second stop.
Stay left of the line, stay left of the line. Be careful down there. Watch your speed.
Paul Tracy running in 3rd place, teammate to Michael Andretti for this and one more race. Announcement expected next week. Best guess it is Tracy goes back to Penske and Christian Fittipaldi joins Newman Haas. So Penske traditionally doesn't announce until after the season is over. Newman Haas traditionally announces at the last race. Michael Andretti a little slow through there.
These opening laps are so important because the tires are cold.
All right, let's go to Jan Beekes.
Teo Bobby has been in after that spin on the racetrack. It was a very, very quick stop for the Forsythe team. He's underway. Another, big blisters on the right front tire of Teo Bobby. So those softer Goodyears definitely having a problem here today.
Well, in fact, the question would be, though, Jan, is that a problem as we're watching Teo spin as a result of the tires wearing or the fact that they tend to look blistered if they've been flat spotted in a spin?
Paul, I'm looking at them very carefully, and it does not appear as though the blisters on the tire have anything to do with flat spotting. It looks as though the tires actually have been overused for the compound. So a problem with the softer Goodyears. It does not appear to be a problem with the actual spin, Paul.
All right. One of the other stories to track suggested right at the start of the show. Let's go to Brian Herta, runs in 3rd place. You ride with him there.
Qualified 15th. He's had a couple of incidents this weekend, nothing serious, but he has managed to claw his way up towards the front right before this first round of pit stops. Currently running in 10th, top 10 for Brian Herta.
Came into the pits in 3rd, then on his way out of the pits fell down through the order, 10th now.
And that lap out of the pits is so important because of cold tires. Dick Simon brought up an interesting point today. Look at this, a drag race with Scott Pruitt down the outside.
And this, in fact, is a fight for position as Pruitt now picks up 10th place.
I mentioned the outlap. Dick Simon mentioned something interesting to me today. He thought tire warmer blankets should now be brought into IndyCar racing to warm the tires up. Michael Andretti said absolutely no way. These soft compounds warm up quick enough for him.
Let's go pits once again. Gary Gerald.
Quick word on Paul Tracy. His stop was quicker than Michael Andretti's. They went for a short fill. We've got the big pit window here, so they're gambling in a sense. Didn't take a full load of fuel. Consequently, he gained positions on the pit stop. He's listed as third right now. It could be great strategy for the crew running Paul Tracy.
With all of the stops complete, it is in fact Michael Andretti, then Unser Jr., Tracy, Rahal, Gordon, and Gugelman. Beyond that, DeFerrin, Emerson Fittipaldi, Andre Ribeiro, and Scott Pruitt. That's the top 10 for you.
And we watched over Robbie Gordon's shoulder as he made that pit stop, but it wasn't good enough. It looked good. Derek Walker, we heard him pump his driver up saying get on, get after it, but Rahal did pass him as Gordon exited the pit lane and made his way down this long front straight.
There's second place Al Unser Jr. That gives you the differential. Now let's take a look at Adrian Fernandez, who just flashed through the frame. On board now with Adrian.
You remember last week, 2 big crashes in New Hampshire. This car is 1 from 2. They put it together. They have just about enough spares to build a second car, but Fernandez struggled a little bit here this weekend. They're so good on the ovals. Haven't quite touched the sweet spot with this Lola for these road courses yet.
Runs 19th right now, but a lot of rumors revolving around him. Possibility of where he may go next year. Team Green has been mentioned quite a bit this weekend.
Paul Tracy took advantage of those pit stops, went from 7th all the way to 3rd. We saw Newman Haas do that for both of their drivers at New Hampshire 2 weeks ago. And now Tracy has track position, and yellow flags could really help him because we don't believe he has a full fuel load.
So now approaching the halfway point. 43 laps into the record book, 57 to go. A 1.703 turn temporary road course. Robbie Gordon, there he is as he's come around Bobby Rahal. In an area, by the way, of Vancouver that has been building up tremendously lately since the race has been here. It's pretty desolate. Former site of a World's Fair, but the construction around this area, new arena here in Vancouver, plenty of new apartment buildings, really building up. Beautiful city. 73,000 spectators here today. Michael Andretti, the leader of the race, a few seconds ago through the chicane.
Watch the curb.
Whoa!
Bounces over the curb. And you can see that he actually has the correction of the steering on when he's in midair. So as he knows when he lands, he's actually pointing in the right direction, and away he goes.
Is part of that trick you can't be on the brakes either. You want that wheel to immediately start the turning moment. If you're on the brakes when you come down, it won't do it.
Part of that trick is to instinctively react before your mind has time to think. We just saw a glimpse of Scott Goodyear back there. He's clawing his way up slowly. Now he is 18th.
Michael Andretti 4.4 seconds ahead of second place Al Unser Jr. There's Junior as he begins to close down. Michael got bottled up a little bit there behind Hero. Now he's clear, begins to pull away. Traffic is smooth in front of him. So as we look over the top of the stadium and down into Falls Creek, it's Michael Andretti still leading here in Vancouver. Battle for the lead heats up here in Vancouver. Michael Andretti being chased by Al Unser Jr. is closed right in. right at the front, third place. Paul Tracy is about 16 seconds back from this fight. Gary Gerald?
Well, just as Paul Tracy gambled, Al Unser and Roger Penske have also gambled somewhat on that last stop. We've just confirmed with the Penske crew it was a short fill of fuel for Unser. So keep that in mind. He's a little lighter than the others. It may make him a bit quicker. He and Tracy gambling that advantage will pay off later with a possible yellow flag situation.
And consequently, that lightweight allowed him to push the fastest lap just up another little bit, 107+ miles an hour. Now he locks him up.
Oh! Al Unser Jr. locks him up, keeps it going. That could have been a disaster.
He is playing with fire here because his championship hopes lie on the fact that he has to be mistake-free. Look how close he goes to the concrete wall here, but it's all or nothing for Al Jr.
Now remember that Jacques Villeneuve has to be in the top 5 to score his championship here as we watch little Al again.
Front tires locked up again, misses the turn-in point and gets away and dodges another bullet.
Let's in fact review that championship for you. Right now, Villeneuve runs in 11th place while Unser Jr. is sitting up there in 2nd. Now, if Al would win that appeal, then based on the points at this moment, Jack would have 171, Al Unser Jr. would have 154, a 17-point difference, which means that the championship would go on to the final race of the season at Laguna.
You think Al is hanging back and taking a deep breath here? Look, about 10 car lengths between them now. That was a risky move. And you have to get your nose all the way beside Michael Andretti's car, or you can be in trouble here because Michael can be difficult to pass and Greco
well, with
is in
Greco
trouble.
at the edge of the course in a precarious area, full course yellow. The pace car will come out. Paul Tracy from 17 seconds back will close up on Al Unser Jr. and Michael Andretti. And indication is that the leaders of the race will not take advantage of this yellow for the stops. It has, after all, only been about 10 laps since they were last in the pits. Well, as we go back to green flag racing, the full course yellow had some fascinating pit action. Into the pits, Jacques Villeneuve, who came out of the pits with stickers on the right side, also into the pits as we watch the battle at the front between Michael Andretti and Al Unser Jr., Bobby Rahal and Emerson Fittipaldi. Boy, look at them battle as they come through here, and it looks like Fernandez gets caught just outside of Carlos Guerrero as they come around the corner. Both of them get through clear. But what this did do was eliminate the advantage that first and second had over third place Paul Tracy. Bunched everybody back up just beyond the halfway point here in Vancouver.
And that is Scott Goodyear you see in the mix there. He's a lap down. He is 16th, but he may be able to run at the pace of the leaders because Paul Tracy is the next man behind him. There he is. He's got Gordon behind him. Gordon, one of the few front-running Goodyear runners.
Oh, come on, Gordy.
Goodyear runners who's still on the softer of the Goodyear tires. Look at this.
Boy, Robbie Gordon in trouble 3 different times, but still is able to get around Bosell. And now back chasing Paul Tracy for third. Bosell, of course, not on the leader lap. There are 14 cars on the leader lap. Interestingly enough, 14th position. Last car on the lead lap is Jacques Villeneuve. Get a glimpse from time to time of the yellow Pennzoil car of DeFerrin for a backup car. He's having a great day, running 5th right now.
There he is, 6 seconds, just over 6 seconds behind Michael in this great battle with Al Jr. all the way down. Scott Pruitt still runs well. Brian Herta made up 2 places from 10th after that pit stop. Ribeiro now started 16th, running 6th. Good run for the second Tasman car. National hero now in Brazil is Andre Ribeiro. Here's Gordon. Watch the jerk sideways on Bosell.
Bosell, of course, worried about not only his left side, but a slowing car just ahead of him until Tracy was able to finally kick the gears up and get her rolling. Junior all over Michael Andretti. For Junior and the Penske team, the philosophy is really simple. We got to win them both. This race and the final race in 1 week at Laguna. Christian Fittipaldi out of the race. Jan Beekes is with him.
Christian, you brought your car on pit road. What knocked you out?
First, I had a flat tire on the start. The tire just blew up down the straight. I don't know why. second at the same time. I had a turbo problem right in the beginning of the race, and then we were just running about short of 80, 90 horsepower. I just kept it going, but unfortunately, it really gave up right now.
You're on the softer tires. I see a setback here that has big blisters. Was that a problem driving on that compound?
That was also a problem during the race. That's why I had pitted so many times. But apart from that, the car wasn't working since the first lap. Like, there was definitely a turbo problem. Instead of running 45 inches on the boost, I was running around 43.8, 44 maximum.
Okay, we wish you better luck at Laguna. Thanks.
Ribeiro battling. Ribeiro just getting around. You got a glimpse of it, getting around to Farron, picking up 5th place.
And that side-by-side drag that we watch with DeFerrin is a very difficult move to pull off right outside our booth here. The left-hander, it's 160 miles an hour. Look how these cars fight for grip through that right-hander as they bounce over those severe bumps. Watch Ribeiro.
Ribeiro, yeah, there's the situation that got him out of position.
Well, that's exactly what we just spoke about. This is the left-hander that we just mentioned. It's so difficult to go side by side through that left-hander, and Ribeiro just smacks that outside wall, destroys the right side of that Tasman Honda. So the LCI phone lines to Brazil won't be talking about success this weekend.
Ribeiro sits in the car. The wheel chased him all the way down and finally bounced off the back end, and we anticipate full course yellow anytime on that car while they get the vehicle out. This is Ribeiro's 9th DNF of his rookie season, but of course one of them a win though 2 weeks ago at Loudon. There's the full course yellow, and once again the front of the field will close in, and once again I expect we're going to see some tactics played in the pits. But now Scott Goodyear, the only Tasman entry, and he is running in 15th position as Ribeiro is out. Back green in Vancouver, they've had a couple of stops. Michael Andretti, Al Unser Jr. under the full course yellow, and Raul Boesel is 14th, trying to hold off his position, but look at the battle for the lead as Unser Jr. comes around Michael Andretti, and Little Al now has the lead of the race.
And he has spent 59 laps threatening to do and pull off a move like that, and he finally does it, and he did it on horsepower and a drag down to the corner.
So Unser Jr. where he wants and needs to be at the front of the field. Brian Herta after the stops is 3rd. Bobby Rahal is 4th. Emerson Fittipaldi is 5th. And Michael locks up the rear brake. Saw something there looked like a piece of paper off of the track. But boy, look how tight that battle is.
Something flew off. Now Al Jr. still has the fastest lap of the race, but Michael is so good in attack situations like this.
Look at Michael as he pokes right up under Al Unser Jr. They come to the straight. Raul Boesel still very much a factor, but he is fast and trying to keep from going a lap down.
That is a key. He's not a lap down yet, so if he thinks he has the speed, he'll try and stay ahead of these boys. Oh, Al Jr.'s all over him.
Junior just loved to get past him and stick Michael Andretti with him, but he can't do it.
Michael loves it. Michael loves when Boesel stays there. Oh, he's in trouble.
Michael slowed. Something broke? No. Missed a gear, maybe.
Pulled away with real low revs there. I can't make out what that was.
I can't either.
Something flew off, and then we saw Michael lock up those tires.
Might have been a tearaway, might have been something on the car. Gary, you have any idea?
Crew indicated radio conversation related to gearbox. We don't know if it's a problem that he'll have or if he just missed a gear, but they just showed me the shift sign, the gearbox. So they may have just missed a shift. We'll watch him and see if he continues to get back up to speed.
Well, he ran the last lap at just over 106. So we'll keep an eye on him now.
The sequential gearbox.
Look, he's not coming off that corner nearly as fast as everybody else.
He's lost his low gears. Look at Tracy and Gugelman side by side.
Look at the entire group as they come roaring through there. And Michael getting bottled up on the inside. So now Herta comes up, as does Rahal. And Gugelman, there he is, as he climbs over the back of Tracy. Let's go to Gary Gerald.
Confirmation from Michael Andretti to the crew. Second gear is gone. No second gear. That's a major problem, obviously.
And at the same time, Jacques Villeneuve has moved up in the field as he's now getting back into the points.
The most used gear in the gearbox as Schiattarella again does a 180 and they pull him back off the racing line. But the most used gear here is that second. Michael is in deep, deep trouble now, and Al Jr. suddenly it gets easier, and he is furious that Bozell will not move over and let him through.
Well, now remember, they have a new ruling on the flags. They can show Bozell a flag that says, get out of the way. It's no longer an advisory. It's you're going to have to get out of the way of the car behind you because, in fact, you are holding him up. And what he is doing is holding him up while Bobby Rahal is able to close from second. Herta third, Tracy fourth.
Villeneuve in a battle back there with Emerson. Gugelmin in a fight here with Tracy. This is what happens at Vancouver when you have yellow flags. It bunches everybody up again, and Villeneuve is back in the mix. Currently running in 10th place.
Position. So Unser Jr. exactly where he needs to be, but Bobby Rahal and Brian Herta beginning to try their close now with 63 laps complete. Back in Vancouver, it was Paul Tracy trying to close on Brian Herta and Bobby Rahal. Herta and Tracy got together in the hairpin, and boy, they're in trouble now.
And Tracy bounced off the wall earlier, down inside Brian Herta. This is the hairpin. He looks as if he's alongside here. The rear wheels are locked up. Look at this. Brian Herta is an innocent victim here.
And it takes out Gugelmin too.
Clouded from both sides because Paul Tracy locked up the rear brakes, trying to pull off that move.
But de Ferran, who was up in the air on the first lap of this race, slides into third with that incident. Now you ride with Paul Tracy.
Down the inside. He gets alongside. Watch him. Watch the steering. Now he knows he's in trouble. Rears a lock. Boom! Hits Brian Herta, who in turn gets clouted by Gugelmin. They're both out.
And Michael Andretti also out, eh, Gary Gerald?
Brutal fortune for the Newman Haas team. Michael, so many times this year we've been in this situation where it looks like you've got control of a race. Then it was gearbox problem.
Yeah, some happened with the gears. I just started missing them all, and it started jumping out of gears, and I could only stay in second gear, so it wasn't even worth staying out.
From what you've seen out there at this point, is Al the guy now to beat? Has he got everybody covered, or can anybody track him down?
I don't think so, because guys like Bobby, their tires tend to go off halfway through the run, and Al seemed to stay about the same as mine, and I think I was the only one that could run with him.
Thank you, Michael.
In the last 11 IndyCar races held here in Canada, 10 have been won by either Michael or Al Unser Jr. Michael's out. Little Al leads it.
Oh, he does, but it's not a comfortable lead. Look at Rahal on the attack here. Rahal surprised everybody when he jumped way up the standings during qualifying yesterday to start in third place, despite how sick he was. In fact, the doctors told him not to bother trying to run the car on Saturday. He thought better, had a great qualifying run, and now Al Jr. is suddenly on the defensive. Mind you, Al Jr. spent the last 3 laps or 4 laps waving at Bozell, trying to get him to move out of the way.
So the order has changed substantially with some interesting incidents and attrition, putting Unser Jr. on top, then Rahal, then de Ferran in third. Villeneuve is now in fourth. Robbie Gordon is in fifth. 3 different chassis in the top 3 positions. Rahal in a Lola, de Ferran in a Renard, and of course Al Unser Jr. in his Penske. Vancouver, there's the leader of the race, Al Unser Jr. You see that Bobby Rahal is just behind him. Rahal has been a little bit closer, but then faltered a few laps ago, and now is working his way back to try and catch Al Unser Jr. De Ferran is third, despite that incident on the first lap. Fourth is Jacques Villeneuve. And of course, in that position, he is going to leave here scoring his IndyCar championship in Canada. But there are many other factors that are going to fit into that situation. We look down from the Honda Helicam as we watch Alonso Jr. flash across the start-finish line and into turn 1 right alongside the stadium here. The real question is going to be one of fuel. Now, the presumption is that I'm making that everybody at the front of the field is going to have to stop. Villeneuve is going to have to stop, I think, a little bit ahead of everybody else. Gary Gerald, can you help us out on this?
We can certainly try. Now, keep in mind that Alonso Jr. pitted on lap 57. That means that they got 2 laps of yellow. They went green then after 59. He'd have to go 41 laps, which is really stretching it in our estimation to be able to go the distance. Bobby Rahal, who's running second, pitted 5 laps prior to him. He had tire problems. Remember, both of the fronts were blistered. So we think definitely that camp will have to go for fuel. The question here with the Penske team is going to be very iffy. If they get more yellow, that helps them. If they don't, they may have to get a splash.
Of course, 2 Mercedes engines at the front of the field, Unser Jr. and Rahal. Let's go for further information to Jan Beekes.
Paul, you're asking about Jacques Villeneuve. Now, he came in on lap number 51, so he is trying very, very hard, along with Team Green, to save fuel. They're trying to make it to the end, but I see no possible way that Jacques Villeneuve can make it to the end of the race without bringing it in and getting a splash of fuel. Now, for Robbie Gordon and some of the others that pitted on that full course yellow, according to their teams, they do feel they can make it to the end, but not as early as lap 51 as we have for Villeneuve.
All right, so let's set that scenario. The front of the field, Unser Jr., Rahal. You just heard Gary Gerald's estimate. Now then, third place is DeFerrin and then Villeneuve. All right, right behind Villeneuve, lined up in such a way that in all likelihood, if Jack stops, Robbie Gordon in 5th, Pruitt in 6th, and Johansson in 7th would all come past. Now that would put Jack into 6th position, and he could still win the title from 6th. But look at this, he just got hit. He just got hit by Goodyear. Goodyear's trying to save the car. He's in trouble, comes off. Thought he was going to make the turn into the pits despite the damaged tire. Didn't do it. Well, that doesn't change that scenario, except how much trouble might he be in? He doesn't look like he's running full tilt now.
Well, Scott Goodyear was taken by surprise there because Jacques Villeneuve suddenly slowed coming out of the notch. The group of cars behind him was suddenly, Goodyear pulled out of line, jumped ahead, thought he was past Villeneuve, pulled over, and you can see the damage to the right front wing in Jacques Villeneuve's car here. Villeneuve suddenly goes slow. Look at Goodyear. Thinks he's by, boom, clouts the wing of Jacques Villeneuve, destroys his left rear tire, and now he luckily gets down the escape road, or else Scott Goodyear was in for a hefty accident here. Look at Pruitt and Johansson down the inside. They get to watch and stand clear.
And another key to that situation right there, as we watch Goodyear come into the pits, is that Scott Pruitt got past and put Villeneuve to 7th. And if he stays in 7th, Jan Beekes, the championship goes on to Laguna Seca in a week.
Yes, we had the opportunity to check with Team Green, and right now they're all huddled around, and they've not been able to give us an answer if there is a problem with Jacques after that contact. But he didn't look as though he was at full speed when he went by us. Right now, a lot of discussion going on here at Team Green.
Yeah, there are cars going past him that should not. Jack is apparently in fairly serious trouble right now with regard to the race and the championship. Unser Jr. is where he needs to be at the top of the order. Third place to Farron. Robbie Gordon actually sits in 4th place right now at the head of the field. Al Unser Jr. and Bobby Rahal. Nothing has changed. 2 Mercedes engines are battling it out. Fuel is going to be the question. When can the stops be made if they need to be made? Teams will play it very close to the chest on this one. And the real question is Jacques Villeneuve. He has not been at full song. He is in 7th position. 7th place will send this championship on. Rahal, whoa, oversmoked it there.
Oh, he gives Al Jr. breathing room, but it gives you an idea just how hard Bobby Rahal is driving this Miller Genuine Draft car. He goes way wide, misses the turn-in point, and then he almost flips the tires. His tires are blistered.
Yeah, you can see him when he locked that up and blistered all the way around. So Rahal hits the pits from 2nd place. He'll also get plenty of fuel here, and that'll take him to the end, but he's losing positions.
And Paul, we saw that earlier. When the blisters come, we saw it with Teo Fabi. Suddenly the car goes out of control. We saw that with Jacques Villeneuve earlier. So Rahal luckily got into trouble at the end of the lap, and he slices right down the pit lane.
So on the 83rd lap, Bobby Rahal suffers this incident.
Can't turn in, misses the apex point. Right front tire, blisters. Left front tire, blisters. You can see them there. Look, he just missed the safety tires.
So that gets Unser Jr. a little breathing room. 8 seconds. Now back to second place, Gilles de Ferran.
And I don't understand, as the race unfolds here, what is going on with Jacques Villeneuve. He continues to circulate. He is running slow. I can't imagine that he's trying to save gobs of fuel. If he's in serious trouble and running that slow, I don't know why he doesn't make a pit stop. Well, this man here, Gilles de Ferran, having a remarkable run for somebody who almost didn't even make the race.
Fortunately, the incident that occurred for Rahal occurred right at the pit entrance. He got in, got his tires changed, and came out in 6th. That's fortunately for him. Not so for the driver of the 27 car, Jacques Villeneuve. It keeps him in 7th position, and that position will not get him the championship here today.
I wonder, is it gearbox problems? We're trying to find out from the pit lane. They will not give us any information, so it's only speculation. Look how slow he accelerates.
Here's Fittipaldi. As Fittipaldi comes around him, puts him down to 8th place.
He may have a problem with the gearbox, but you can see how slow he runs down this long straight. Normally 180 miles an hour, and that is considerably slower. The championship at the moment is going to California.
Remember, points paid down to 12th place, so he is still going to score some points, but they're not going to be points that are going to be worthy here today. It'll send the championship on to Laguna Seca. That is, if everything remains the same right now. Junior leads it. De Ferran, despite a heavy incident that caused a red flag in the opening lap and jumping into his backup car, now runs in 2nd place, but a good 10 seconds back. Pruitt is 4th. Gordon is 3rd. Pruitt closing on Gordon. As soon as Pruitt can handle up Carlos Guerrero.
Stefan Johansson is right there, and Tony Bettenhausen's car didn't have a good qualifying run, but certainly having a good race.
Tony is not here. His mother-in-law, Shirley McElreath, suffered a stroke earlier in the week, and he and his wife, Shirley, both went down to Arlington, Texas. We, by the way, want to express our concern for the McElreath family. Guerrero gets out of the way of Pruitt and Johansson. Concern for the McElreath family, and our prayers go with them. Jim McElreath, one of the great competitors in IndyCar racing, not so very long ago. There's de Ferran, 2nd place. Tracy closing up, but Tracy not in the fight. He runs in 9th place. There's the order for you. 100 laps, the scheduled distance, 14 laps to go. Back in Vancouver, Jacques Villeneuve, he's got a problem. Al Unser Jr. has put him a lap down. Now Gilles de Ferran is closing in to put him a lap down as well. He is not in a position to take the championship. He runs 8th. The leader of the race is Al Unser Jr., followed by de Ferran. You have an update on Jacques? Jan Beekes?
Yes, I do, Paul. They have finally now confirmed that it is gearbox trouble, just like Derek thought it was. He is just trying to limp around and get as much points, or at least as much mileage as he can here today. Gary, you have more?
Just checking here with optimism now is the byword in the Penske camp. We were doing the math and wondering, could they stretch it? Could they make it without making a splash for fuel in the final laps? They say that Junior is one of the very best at conserving. They're short shifting. They've leaned it down. They are optimistic right now, and they're saying, yes, we can go the distance. I guess we're about to find out.
Well, he has an 8-second pad over 2nd place de Ferran, so that's a pad that would allow a little stretch, not very much. You can see how slick that corner is getting. A lot of marbles just off the line there. It'll be difficult for anyone who wants to move out and pass almost anywhere on this circuit. Been a problem of the competition between Firestone and Goodyear. It's the byproduct of that competition. Tires are softer. They tend to throw marbles easier. And the marbles just hang there just off the line. And in the latter parts of the race, it can make it very difficult. There's second place. Jimmy Vassar started in second place on this race. He, of course, is out for the Ganassi team. It's Brian Herta, who is the only car left in competition for that team. They run in 16.
Engineered by Mo Nunn. Brian Herta, high-speed Herta is his nickname. He's been a winner here in the past on the Indy Lights series. Firestone Indy Lights, of course, producing so many front-running racing drivers. Technically very, very good with a racing car. But he was the innocent victim today of an attack by Paul Tracy when Tracy went to slide down the inside, got out of control. So Herta now can continue, but he's in 16th place.
You've been staying up to date. In fact, reports this week on Speed Week. What's the story with Ganassi, Vassar, Herta, that team? Do you have any idea? And also, you reported Greg Moore into position.
Players did announce, in fact, that they had formed a new association with Forsyth Racing to go IndyCar racing. Now, obviously, that money moves from Barry Green's team over to Forsyth. We presume Greg Moore, who has totally dominated the Indy Lights series this year, will move into that cockpit. That only makes logical sense. However, it's not confirmed yet. On the Ganassi front, there is no announcement yet, but we presume that he will re-sign Jimmy Vassar. I think, in fact, he has re-signed Jimmy Vassar, and we are led to believe that Brian Herta will also stay there for a second year.
This is the fight now. Rahal, Johansson, Pruitt. Pruitt is fourth, then Johansson, then Rahal. And they're all right together on the circuit. Unser Jr. has now 10 seconds. He's pulling away from DeFerrin.
And Paul, here's the problem now for Bobby Rahal. He needs to get by Stefan Johansson and Scott Pruitt. However, they are embroiled in their own separate battle. This is for a good position, 4th and 5th, so they don't dare back off. So there's a catch-22 here between Rahal and Pruitt and Stefan Johansson.
Championship out of reach for Villeneuve here. It'll go on to a final race. That'll become a tiebreaker on the wins as well in that IndyCar point system. Look at that three-way battle.
And look at that defensive inside line by Pruitt. Comes down inside Matt Schuster, goes right to the apex, and Rahal again. He doesn't have the speed to catch Alonso Jr., but he's certainly building the frustration level now at not being able to easily pass Johansson and Pruitt for all good reasons, though.
And remember, with that move by Rahal, having to go into the pits as Rahal comes around Johansson and stays there. So he gets around Johansson. Rahal should be able to go all the way to the end. That may be a key factor as we come to the final laps right after this. Back in Vancouver, Bobby Rahal now attacking Scott Pruitt. Fight for 4th place. Unser Jr. the leader, DeFerrin second, Gordon third. Fuel still the question. Who has to stop? When do they have to stop? We now have 7 laps to go. By the way, normally we're able to give you some more information. Leader and laps left to go in the upper left-hand corner. What was that? Was that Stefan coming back around? Maybe CBC will give us a shot again in a second. I was going to tell you that EDS scoring, normally so efficient for us. Unfortunately, there has been a problem here with it this weekend. About mid-race it developed, and that's what generates some of this other information for you on television and why we don't have it for you. So please accept our apologies. Normally, EDS does just a superlative job for us.
Al Jr., hard to believe the number of road races, street racetracks that he has won on. 3 times he has won here. Himself and Michael Andretti have owned Vancouver virtually. So he knows what it's like to win. Think of his Long Beach record. 5 wins out at Long Beach, and he's nursing the Penske home now, hoping that Rahal doesn't have a challenge and that he does not have to stop for a splash and go, and a spectacular run for Gilles DeFerrin. Sometimes you get a second chance and you can't believe your luck. You see contact, the front nose of that car has already hit another car.
There's 3rd place Gordon.
Also involved in that fracas in that first start. Jammed in the back, rammed into the back by Paul Tracy.
Got to tell you, I'm pumped about that debut of RPM tonight. All of the highlights, everything that matters in motorsports. So if you get ESPN2, boy, that's where to be. 8 p.m. Eastern, the debut tonight. There's your leader. Still pulling away, about 11 seconds ahead of Jill DeFerrin. DeFerrin, Gordon, Pruitt, and Johansson top 5. So Johansson did get back around Ray Hall. Ray Hall 6th. And Fittipaldi, Tracy, Zampedri. Raul Boisel is 10th. 11th is Jack Villeneuve. If he keeps falling backwards, he's going to fall out of the points entirely. Keeping track of DeFerrin now. Jan Beekes.
Paul, Gilles DeFerrin is one of those drivers we really didn't update you on his fuel situation. He stopped on lap 57. They think they can make it to the end. They say it's going to be close. They are not going to come in and take a splash and go. In other words, if he runs out, that's just tough luck. They're going to stay out there and just hope they make it to the end.
A decision time coming. 96 laps are complete.
What a race he had at Cleveland. On the pole, so dominant, and then he tripped over Scott Pruitt at the end. Here's a man that's already been in victory lane this year on the streets of Detroit. Remember that spectacle? All the cars in a line towards the end of the race. And that's what street racing gives you.
Bobby Rahal working on Scott Pruitt. That's a battle for position. When we come back, it'll be the checkered flag, and we'll see what happens with fuel. Couple of quick changes on the circuit. Johansson around Pruitt for 4th, and then Rahal making his move on Pruitt as well. So still at the top of the order is Al Unser Jr. 12 seconds ahead of DeFerrin with 2 laps to go.
Roger Penske spends a considerable amount of time talking to his driver on the radio. Every lap sometimes he will talk to him to update him on his nearest challenger, to talk him through how he needs to handle the closing portions of this race. Incidentally, if the radios ever go out on these Penskes, they have a digital message board on the steering wheel that they use to send information to the drivers.
Well, it looks like everybody's going to give it a shot for the final lap. White flag is out. Al Unser Jr. does not stop. DeFerrin does not stop. Will they make it all the way?
Tire marks on the nose, so the Penske's been in battle. It doesn't have far to go now.
They came across the line. Unser Jr. came across 12 seconds ahead of this man. DeFerrin looking for his best ever result. Al Unser Jr. keeping power, but definitely reduced speed a bit. Squeezing it slowly off the corners. Gordon in 3rd, Johansson 4th. Good result for Stefan. Then Rahal, Pruitt, Fittipaldi, Tracy, Zampedri, and Boisel. Villeneuve is out of the points as Al Unser Jr. takes the win. The championship goes on to the final race of the season in 1 week at Laguna Seca. What a terrific run for the man who moved to his backup car after a crash on the start. Gilles DeFerrin finishes this race in 2nd. Now Robbie Gordon being challenged right at the end here by Stefan Johansson. Let's see if he can hold him off. Rahal moves inside of Johansson and challenges Johansson, but can't get it done. So it's DeFerrin, Gordon, Johansson, Rahal. Official results, and what this does is set up a battle for the championship in 1 week right here on ESPN at Laguna Seca. Al Unser Jr. has to finish 3rd or better, plus the pole and bonus points to beat Jack Villeneuve for the championship. I'm Paul Page for all the gang here. See you in a week.